This is Earth. It's a risk. Oh, it's going to get nasty when the storm comes. No one to save you, no place to hide. It will arrive. Cornelia Marie was the most deadly capture for over a decade. Fans learned to know it as the home of Captain Phil Harris, a man who lived and breathed the sea and was rough but adored. Josh and Jake, his kids, took over and vowed to continue the flame after his death. The audience cheered them on. However, everything changed in August 2022. Suddenly, a long-lost court document appeared online. It initially appeared to be simply another old court document. However, it became evident after more investigation that Josh Harris had been concealing something horrible for 24 years. A crime that rocked fans to their core because it was so unnerving and terrible. Discovery removed any traces of Cornelia Marie from its shows in a matter of days. Subsequently, streaming services pulled entire seasons virtually immediately. What precisely did Josh do then? The start. At Horton Boats in Bayou Labatt, Alabama, the Cornelia Marie was constructed in 1989. Every weld in the little, saltwater shipbuilding hamlet of Labatra was the result of years of skill. Over the years, the town, which was well known for its tenacious yards and seasoned builders, had launched hundreds of boats, including crabbers, shrimp boats, and tours. The Cornelia Marie, however, was more than a job. An era came to an end with it. The renowned shipbuilder Elmo Horton, whose name is still well known in Gulf Coast marine circles, oversaw this last major commercial construction. The Cornelia Marie was designed to survive in the Bering Sea, thanks to its long, sleek deck, wide beam, and strong steel frame. It was 28 feet long across the beam and 128 feet long from bow to stern. It sat deep and steady, with a draft of somewhat more than 11 feet. Made from sturdy steel and designed to withstand the harsh Bering Sea environment. From the reinforced hull to the sheer weight it carried, every aspect of it was built to last. It had real power below deck. The Cornelia Marie's twin Cummins QS-19M diesel engines provided the force it required to evade approaching storms and break through seas. With 750 horsepower from each engine, the boat could reach 14½ knots, which is fast for its size and class. During brief crab seasons, when time was of the essence, such speed, this boat sped ahead as others slowed. The Cornelia Marie was constructed with tanks that could contain 3,000 g of fresh water and 500 g of gasoline. It wouldn't have to come back to port for weeks at a time when at sea. In the harsh and always changing world of Alaskan crabbing, this is a crucial edge when pursuing. With that range, it became a formidable rival. This boat was able to drive farther and fish longer than other boats, which had to balance fuel constraints against crab populations. That self-sufficiency might make the difference between survival and disaster, or between profit and loss. Out on the Bering Sea, where every hour counts and storms can imprison you miles from aid. Building it cost $2.5 million, which at the time was a significant expenditure, but the risk was worthwhile. In addition to its strength, the Cornelia Marie soon gained a reputation for dependability, efficiency, and the capacity to tow heavy loads in the world's most hostile waters. Something unique about the boat's name distinguished it from the rest of the fleet. Unlike previous captains, Ralph Collins, the man who commissioned the build, did not select a mythological character or a catchphrase. He gave it the name Cornelia Marie Collins in honor of his wife. This was an acknowledgment of collaboration. Cornelia did not observe from a distance. Beside him, she operated the company, handling money, logistics, and the innumerable invisible demands that keep a boat afloat. It was a show of honor to name the ship after her. Cornelia continued to possess a portion of the business even after their marriage ended. Not even for a moment did the name leave the hull. It was already more than just paint and letters by that point, and millions of people would eventually recognize it. The Cornelia Marie stood out with her aquamarine hull, white trim, and bright yellow flags flying with pride. It made its own announcement. The boat had a distinctive and recognizable appearance that let it stand out whether it was parked in Kodiak, waiting out bad weather in Dutch Harbor, or pushing through waters. It was more than simply a lovely paint job, though. The Cornelia Marie faced the worst the Bering Sea had to give right from the start. It hunts herring, salmon, king crab, and opilio crab. Every season has its risks. This boat was designed to navigate these waters, which were among the roughest on the planet. The Cornelia Marie's massive fuel tanks and ample freshwater capacity allowed it to outlast several of its competitors. It continued fishing while others had to turn back for supplies. It contributed to the boat's reputation as one of the most resilient on the ocean in a fishery where time is of the essence and margins are extremely narrow. The Cornelia Marie's initial crew was made up of both novices and seasoned veterans. The excitement, the risk, and the possibility of large payouts drew some in. Others were merely making ends meet in the hopes of starting over or escaping their past. In any case, they were all subjected to the same harsh circumstances. Unexpectedly, icy waves crashed over the bow, drenching everything in icy cold. Through the rigging, winds howled like a warning that no one could afford to ignore. It was a gamble every shift. A guy could be lost to the water with only one misstep. Nevertheless, the Cornelia Marie continued to persevere through each journey. When the Big Valley collapsed in the freezing darkness during the tragic winter of 2005, the Cornelia Marie joined the frantic hunt for survivors. Even though just one man survived the ordeal, the mission had tremendous impact. Cornelia Marie's reputation was solidified by actions such as those. It was more than just a crab-hauling ship. The boat had established itself as a legend among those who lived on the edge of the world long before cameras were on board or fame discovered it. The Cornelia Marie had achieved some level of stardom by the 1990s and early 2000s. Its length was increased by 22 feet after a significant renovation, increasing its crab capacity by 100 pounds. The boat could now haul in over 300,000 pounds of crab on a single voyage when it was full capacity. The Cornelia Marie persevered while other vessels faltered during difficult times or capsized under stress. Hard labor, wise decisions, and frequent decisions were the keys to its success, all characteristics that will eventually make the yacht ideal for reality television. Phil Harris was at the center of the tale. He earned his spot and became a co-owner after joining in the early 1990s. He assumed command as captain in 1998, the period of transition. Phil Harris was fiercely loyal to his crew, demanding and harsh as nails. He supported the men aboard the Cornelia Marie through every storm, accident, and exhausting night on the rails, treating them like family. He had a strong affinity with the boat. It lasted for over 2 decades and helped to determine the Cornelia Marie's future. At the age of 8, he began learning the craft of fishing with his father in the small town of Bottle, Washington, where his adventure started. Harris left secondary school at the age of 17. Curiously, he became interested in crab fishing because of money. One acquaintance came home with a brand new automobile after earning over $100,000 in a single season. Harris, meanwhile, packed up and moved north after becoming stuck in an outdated Chevelle and yearning for something greater. He almost broke during the first season. Harris made nothing and gave up once, but he returned with something to prove after the captain made fun of him for leaving. He eventually made $130,000 in a single season at the age of 19. At the age of 21, he acquired his first boat, the Golden Viking, 2 years later. On his birthday, his skipper gave him the wheel. That should have been a celebration, but instead, it was accompanied by crippling debt, damaged gear, and the nearly insurmountable challenge of gaining respect as a young captain. He had to pay $50,000 for urgent repairs at one point. Harris stayed put when most would have left. He had already established himself as one of the Bering Sea's most shrewd and resilient captains by the time he was in his mid-20s. He had a reputation for barking commands and chain smoking. But beyond the tough exterior, he had a deep concern. He distributed earnings equitably. His team admired him because he never asked them to do anything he wouldn't do himself. Despite the harshest conditions the sea could offer, many of them returned season after season. His private life was a different matter: substance abuse issues and 2 divorces. Although he wasn't flawless, he gave his all for the crew and the yacht. He stayed up at night worrying about empty crab pots because he thought his team could return home empty-handed. He was not able to accept that. The Cornelia Marie had significant modifications while Harris was in charge. The yacht was expanded by 22 feet and divided into 4 sections during a significant overhaul. That increased the crab's capacity by 100,000 pounds. The Cornelia Marie became more than just a fishing boat when his sons, Josh and Jake, joined him on deck. In 2005, a significant event occurred. In Season 2 of Deadliest Catch, the Cornelia Marie was one of just 4 boats selected for in-depth coverage. The producers had a difficult task. They only wanted the best, and there were more than 250 boats operating in the Berry. They had reduced the list to roughly 89 by the end. Captain Phil Harris and the Cornelia Marie's powerful catches made it stand out. At first, Phil wasn't convinced. The thought of cameras following his staff around didn't sit well with him. He was concerned that recording would interfere with the process, cause disruptions, or worse, record anything during a risky situation that ought to have remained confidential. Discovery Channel was looking for a trustworthy vessel. However, Phil wanted to preserve the fishing emphasis and safeguard his team. The time, however, was perfect. A significant change occurred in the industry that year. The former Derby-style crab season was superseded by the new individual fishing quota system. It increased the bar while slowing down the mayhem. They selected just the best boats. The Cornelia Marie deserved to be in that exclusive club. When Phil decided to include his sons Josh and Jake, he was taking a risk. It gave the show a completely new dimension. Phil didn't treat them any differently, though. Like all the others, he pushed them hard. The images on the television were authentic. The labor, the stress, the times when leadership and fatherhood clashed. Fans still remember one scene. When Phil's health started to deteriorate, the cameras continued to follow the brothers as they learned the ins and outs of crab fishing, including the incident where Phil urged to Jake, "You need to go to treatment, man. At least you'll have a fighting chance." People have seen him lead, labor, struggle, and love. People connected with Phil in large measure because of his honesty. He was eager to express his opinions, rough around the edges, and frequently hilarious without even trying. Who could forget phrases like, "Now you know why lions eat their young," or "I feel like a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest"? His sense of humor got him through the most trying times. His yacht was another item that got him through. Unlike the others, Cornelia Marie had a unique appearance. It became a brand because of the striking combination of aquamarine, white, and yellow. Hats, shirts, mugs, and even little model ships were purchased by fans. Like seeing an old friend, people shared pictures whenever they spotted it in port. The image remained powerful, even if it changed owners or briefly left the show. The boat's numbers also contributed to its notoriety. The Cornelia Marie brought in large catches right from the start. It was one of the best boats throughout the harsh 2005 season. Phil pushed hard, racing rivals, staying out longer, and chasing storms. He had the muscle to do it because of the boat. It was 128 feet long and could transport around 300 tons of crab. This resulted in more time spent pulling in pots and fewer trips back to port. It wasn't just good television. They demonstrated the crew's talent and diligence. They demonstrated Phil's willingness to go to great lengths. But there was another tale unfolding. Phil's battle with addiction and himself were bigger than life. From the wheelhouse, he was more than just the skipper giving commands. He was the guy who always had a cigarette smoldering in his fingers. Everything was documented in the show. The countless coffee pots, the Red Bull cans stacked like fuel cells, the chain smoking. Although it appeared to be a natural aspect of the persona, it was slowly killing him. Phil had a pulmonary aneurysm at sea in 2008. That ought to have been the pivotal moment. Physicians pleaded with him to quit. Despite pleas from his sons and team, Phil persisted. He didn't stop drinking. Phil suffered a big stroke in 2010 when he was 53 years old. Unfortunately, the Harris family was cursed with addiction, the point at which everything was altered. Phil unexpectedly passed out while the crew was unloading crab on January 29, 2010. The stroke was enormous. His team immediately radioed for assistance. EMTs arrived quickly. The closest large hospital was hundreds of miles away due to Paul Island's extreme remoteness. After stabilizing Phil, they flew him to Anchorage and set up a medevac. Phil was rushed away, battling for his life, leaving his sons and staff dumbfounded. Every second, every desperate radio call was caught on video. It brought up difficult issues. Should the world see such suffering? Phil was unabbed the family, and Discovery collaborated closely. The Harris boys were in agreement. In order to honor their father, they wanted people to see the truth. However, it was a decision that still causes anxiety in individuals today. Initially, Phil appeared to have a chance. He gave his hands a squeeze. He talked and made jokes. Physicians found it hard to believe. Phil recovered in a matter of days, although most stroke victims take months. But everything changed when a sudden brain hemorrhage occurred. Phil's health deteriorated. His friends and sons remained at his side. All that remained was to bid them farewell. The death of Phil Harris occurred on February 9, 2010. They divided his ashes. His mother's remains were half placed in a Harley-Davidson gas tank. The others dispersed across the ocean. His home had always been the water. On July 20, 2010, 5.4 million people watched Redemption Day, the Deadliest Catch episode. One of the most watched episodes ever was this one. Many claim they shared the Harris family's tears. It was no longer merely a show. Phil Harris was more than just his captaincy. He turned became Deadliest Catch's focal point. Fans continue to post his quotes online years after his passing. They continue to wear hats and shirts bearing his quotes. His spirit endures, and his voice has not diminished. Josh and Jake, the sons of Captain Phil Harris, were left with a difficult and almost impossible responsibility following his death in February 2010. The Cornelia Marie was to remain in the family, but they didn't have complete ownership, and it would be more expensive than they had anticipated to buy out the other parties. To make matters more challenging, the yacht also needed major repairs. The brothers made several attempts to obtain loans, but no one took them seriously. They were viewed as too hazardous, too young, and too inexperienced by banks and investors. There were also familial conflicts. A significant portion was owned by Phil's old business partner, Cornelia Marie Devlin, after whom the boat was named. She and the Harris brothers did not always agree. The talks were heated. Josh and Jake battled to preserve. They had to prove themselves to millions of spectators, their crew, and the fishing community. At times, it seemed as though they would never be successful. The Cornelia Marie entered a difficult period following Phil's passing. Phil's longtime friend, Derek Ray, took over as acting captain. It was his responsibility to carry on Deadliest Catch's boat story, as Phil had requested. But there was conflict because of Ray's leadership. He was severe. He was at odds with the Mourning brothers, particularly Jake. To scare Jake straight, Ray even contacted the police and accused him of using drugs on board. Both the workers and the fans were taken aback by that moment. Phil had brought the boat together, but now it felt split. The crew nearly mutinied when the crab haul was in poor condition. They accused Ray of being cruel and of failing to locate crab. One of the most traumatic and dramatic times in Cornelia Marie's history occurred during this time. After years of hardship, Josh finally managed to move on. He joined forces with Casey McManus, a friend from his youth who had developed into a proficient deckhand and engineer. They raised the required amount of money together. 45% of the Cornelia Marie was purchased by Josh. Casey purchased 5%. Two outside investors received 25% of the remaining 50%. They were able to overhaul the yacht thanks to this deal. Along with other significant upgrades, they installed brand new Cummins engines with 750 horsepower. Josh and Casey joined as fellow captains in 2015. The only thing left to do was recruit new partners to help pay the bills when the engines were replaced with two 758 horsepower Cummins diesels. Crew pay, fuel, insurance, and maintenance were among the costs. Josh referred to it as a financial black hole. The pandemic then made matters worse. Wages for the crew increased to 10 times the standard rate. It felt like a gamble every season. A one poor catch might spell catastrophe. Taking greater chances, such as chasing golden king crab in more dangerous, deeper seas, was the only way to survive. A whole new layer was added by the cameras. The crew's safety wasn't always in line with the show's requirements. Drama, postponing travel, and filming during storms made for amazing television, but they also increased the risk of crab fishing. The boat was occasionally even removed from the broadcast by Discovery Channel. It has to do with image or legal concerns, not fishing. The crew had to strike a balance between performing for millions of people watching from their couches and surviving the sea. Although viewers were occasionally perplexed by Josh and Cummins' arguments, their cooperation kept the Cornelia Marie alive and took it back to the deadly capture. Jake's life was collapsing as Josh was repairing the boat and his future. Prior to Phil's passing, His addiction had already begun to manifest, and it was now getting out of hand. The episode in which Phil confronted Jake for stealing medications was seen by millions of viewers. Jake acknowledged his addiction. With Phil gone, things only got worse. For DUI, Jake was taken into custody. He was then arrested once more for narcotics possession and auto theft in 2017. He was convicted of DUI and attempted heroin distribution 2 years later, in 2019. All of this culminated in 2024, when he led police on a fast-paced pursuit and received an 18-month prison sentence. Jake lost contact with Cornelia Marie and Josh. Fans were taken aback in October 2016 when Josh and Cornelia Marie disappeared from Deadliest Catch Season 13. Rumors erupted on social media. After that, Josh uploaded a video to make everything clear. That season, the producers had just chosen to concentrate on other vessels. Josh expressed his displeasure and reassured supporters that he and the team were prepared to go fishing. The fans were incensed. Before the return of Cornelia Marie, many threatened to boycott the performance. The goal of the network was to change up the plots. They believed that in order to maintain viewer attention after all these years, the show needed new perspectives. But it was annoying for Josh and the team. The show was linked to their reputations and lives. The Harris family was dealing with a serious health crisis on top of everything else. There was a time when multiple family members were in the intensive care unit simultaneously. Renee Harris suffered a severe heart attack in July 2024. She was on life support for days, required a double bypass, and was in critical care for a week. 4 times, her heart stopped. Other family members experienced medical crises, brain hemorrhages, and strokes. Instead of fishing or filming, they had to concentrate on survival because the tension was so overwhelming. Supporting comments and financial donations were given by fans who banded together. Josh's grandfather, Captain Grant Harris, passed away, which further compounded the grief. Josh was devastated by this second loss after losing Phil. Josh felt a great deal of pressure to live up to 2 generations of captains while battling his own difficulties. He has been candid about his battles with anxiety and despair, but he was also motivated by their losses. He decided to preserve the Cornelia Marie narrative in remembrance of his father and grandfather. During the entire process, the Deadliest Catch crew evolved beyond simple camera operators. They grew to be like family. They experienced the same icy winds, perilous waters, and restless nights. They witnessed the Harris family's most intimate moments, including their triumphs, heartbreaks, and grief. During extremely private moments, they occasionally had to take a back seat. However, they frequently shared meals, responsibilities, and even conflicts. Fans experienced a surge of excitement when the Cornelia Marie made a comeback in Deadliest Catch, Season 14. Many viewers were devastated by the boat's disappearance in 2017. Excitement erupted when Discovery revealed it will be returning for the 2018 season. Posts, jokes, and even petitions pleading with the network to retain the boat in the lineup were all over social media. As viewers tuned in to watch Josh Harris and Casey McManus in charge, ratings skyrocketed. Supporters wanted to see if Phil's legacy could be upheld by the younger generation. The relief and happiness were evident. It was like receiving a bit of the show's spirit back when Cornelia Marie made a reappearance. When Deadliest Catch Bloodline debuted in 2012, the Harris narrative took an unexpected new turn. The action was shifted from the frigid waters of Alaska to the sunny coasts of Hawaii in this spin-off. It all began when Josh discovered between 50 and 60 antique fishing charts on the Cornelia Marie. Concealed in his father's stateroom, there were odd annotations and noted fishing sites on 3 of these maps for Hawaii. Determining to follow his father's hints, Josh joined forces with Casey and Jeff Silva, a local fisherman. They worked together to uncover the mysteries Phil's maps held. They were pursuing more than only large fish, such as $2,000 tuna. They were revealing a secret aspect of Phil's history. Bloodline combined a personal journey with fishing. Changes in leadership were gradually noticeable as the Cornelia Marie continued to sail. Casey McManus started to assume more and more leadership roles. Casey took on the challenge, while Josh dealt with personal and legal issues. By season 14, viewers saw Casey managing the boat's operations and making important choices. His abilities kept the Cornelia Marie operating efficiently and profitably behind the scenes. But as Josh's sinister secrets were revealed, his role became even smaller. Josh's reality. When it was revealed in September 2022 that he had entered a guilty plea to sexually assaulting a juvenile years prior, it was the hardest blow. Discovery moved quickly. They severed all connections with Josh and took Bloodline and Deadliest Catch down from streaming services. Almost immediately, Josh's reputation fell apart. When old court documents appeared online in August 2022, the bombshell was first revealed. When fans discovered that Josh, then 15 years old, had sexually abused a 4-year-old family friend's daughter in 1998, they were horrified. The details of the case were terrible. Charges were not brought until the following year due to DNA delays. Josh spent 9 months in prison after entering a guilty plea to a lesser offense in 1999. Additionally, he had to do 2 years of therapy. Many believe that, considering the crime, the punishment was excessively mild. This horrible past remained secret for over 20 years. When the truth was eventually revealed, supporters felt deceived and furious, asking how such a grave act had gone unnoticed. Once word spread, Discovery acted swiftly. Streaming platforms in the US, Canada, and other countries stopped carrying old episodes. Even tweets and promotional posts vanished. The network does not want to be associated with the issue. Fans' opinions were divided. While some lamented the Cornelia Marie's disappearance from their screens, others applauded Discovery's prompt response. Despite his innocence in all of this, Casey McManus too had to pay a price. Casey was also cut off from Discovery when they severed their relationship with Josh. His tenure on the show ended without his fault, and his contract was not renewed. Supporters thought it was unjust. Despite his long-standing admiration, Casey was caught in the middle of the tempest. Cornelia Marie began a new chapter in 2024. Taylor Jensen revealed that he and other partners had purchased the boat on June 17. Jensen, Roger Thomas, Carrie Toya, and Jake Albanino were on the team. Fans were thrilled to see new faces, eager to lead Cornelia Marie into the future as Albanino took over as captain. Although they respected the boat's heritage, the new owners made it apparent that fishing, not celebrity, would be their main priority. Cornelia Marie had been free of the Harris family's shadow for the first time since Phil Harris's passing. What are your thoughts about that? Leave a comment with your ideas. Don't forget to subscribe and click the like button. Click on the video that is on your screen before you leave.